We are getting closer to the IPL itself. There's a lot of IPL news that is coming your way. And so hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get us to 500 subscribers. This is Wake Up Cricket powered by Pavilion Picks. Let's get right into it.
Well, they say bolti band kar di. That's how we started. But yeah, moving on to the first story, and that is about Jasprit Bumrah, and that is a story that has made us kind of quiet about things. Jasprit Bumrah reports to CoE for workload management ahead of IPL 2026. Jasprit Bumrah has reported to the BCCI Center of Excellence in Bangalore for workload management with a focus on strength and conditioning. The plan has been devised by the Board of Control for Cricket in India medical team, keeping in mind India's white ball tour of England in July, where they are scheduled to play 5 T20Is and 3 ODIs. Bumrah is continuing to bowl at the CoE and is expected to join the Mumbai Indians soon in time for their opening IPL 2026 fixture against Kolkata Knight Riders on March 29th. He recently played a key role in India defending the T20 World Cup title, picking up 4 for 15 in the final against New Zealand and winning the Player of the Match award in a 96-run victory. Bumrah has taken 186 wickets in 148 matches for Mumbai Indians and is 9 away from surpassing Lasith Malinga as the franchise leading wicket taker. Mumbai Indians have begun training at the Wankhede Stadium as they chase a record 6th IPL title, their first since 2020.
All right, so this was a very interesting piece of news when it came out because I think it caught a lot of us off guard. I don't think
Yeah.
any of us were expecting this to happen where Bumrah is going back to the COE just for a bit of a medical assessment. I'm sure it's nothing serious and he should still be featuring in the IPL itself. But the Mumbai Indians fans would have been caught a little off guard, especially considering the fact that they haven't particularly had great seasons leading up to this one. And so there is that want to be able to win the trophy this time around, right? And even if you look at it from a point of view of the kind of bowlers they have, there are enough bowlers for them who can bowl with the new ball. You have the likes of Deepak Chahar, you have Trent Bolt, you even have someone like Hardik Pandey, although he has been expensive, you know that he can do those new ball duties. And so it becomes important for them to have a pacer who can come into those middle overs and the death. And so that being considered, it becomes very, very important that Jasprit Bumrah is once again fit. But overall, I think it is going to be an interesting season for the Mumbai Indians this time around. They will hope that Jasprit Bumrah is around because he makes a huge part of their wheel. In fact, I was just looking up his numbers yesterday, and in no phase of the T20 innings does he ever go at more than 7 runs per over, which is insane. So you can ball him up front in the power play, you can ball him in those middle overs, you can even bowl him especially at the death, and he's just not going to go for more than 7 runs per over. And in each of these phases, he also gives a boundary once every like 8 deliveries or something insane like that. So if you're getting a boundary of Jasprit Bumrah, you're already a good enough batter. If you're getting multiple boundaries in the over, good luck to you. And I think that's mostly it for this. We'll get to know very soon where Bumrah is in terms of his fitness level. And I think it's just keeping in mind his workload management and the fact that he's had back injuries in the past. So you don't also want to put him in a situation where he's played the entire IPL and then you just don't know what to do with him because he might get injured right after when India has games. And so all that being said and done, I think it makes sense for him to be at the COE, get assessed once, and then hopefully come into the IPL.
So if you hit him for more than one boundary in an over, then you make a
Mm,
documentary. Moving
basically.
on, Prithvi Shaw returns to Delhi Capitals, says break made him mentally stronger. Prithvi Shaw is back with Delhi Capitals after going unsold at the IPL 2025 auction, saying the time away from the game helped him reset mentally and physically. After managing just 304 runs in 16 innings across 23-24 seasons, Shaw admitted he needed a step back. He spent time ahead of the IPL traveling before returning to a more intense training routine. I enjoyed my life a lot, then I came back and started doing everything 3 times more. I think it was a good break for me. I needed that break to take myself mentally stronger. Shaw's struggles had seen him drop midway through IPL 2024, and he was also left out of the Mumbai's squad during the 24-25 season. Shreyas Iyer had publicly said Shaw needed to improve his work ethic. He later moved to play for Maharashtra cricket team in domestic cricket. Reflecting on the criticism, Shaw said he has learned to block out external noise. I'm a human being. I will make mistakes. People only know half the story. I stopped seeing all that. I had belief in myself. At Delhi Capitals, Shaw will compete with Batum Nasanka and Abhishek Purell for a spot at the top alongside KL Rahul. Delhi Capitals, who last made the playoffs in 2021, will begin their IPL 26 campaign against Lucknow Super Giants on April 1st.
Awesome. So now the Prithvi Shaw story is something that we've known for a while, right? I think I first read about him in a newspaper way back when he scored that 546 for Rizvi Springfield. And you knew that this kid was always going to be special. And that's how it turned out also across his domestic debuts, his India debuts, where he basically scored centuries everywhere. And from there, even in the IPL early on with the likes of Ricky Ponting, Shreyas Iyer, so many of these guys around him, you could see that this man was going to make an impact. However, that completely fell off and Shaw just got sidelined for a couple of years. And as this article also mentioned, Shreyas Iyer talking about how Prithvi Shaw's work ethic is an issue. This is something that has also come up multiple times across different teams and different coaches. And so you knew that there's something that was either going wrong in his personal life or something that he had to work on to be able to come back to this stage. Now, we did see him dropped from the IPL itself. He also got removed from the Mumbai team, eventually had to go to Maharashtra to play his cricket last year around. And so, all things considered, he did have a decent enough domestic season. By Shaw standards, you'd still think that he's capable of doing so much more. And I know that there's a lot of Prithvi Shaw fans out there who will hope that he can actually do that. Now, this time around, he's finally got picked for the Delhi Capitals. There is some amount of trust that they would have placed in him coming into the season. That's the only reason he got picked in the first place. What becomes important now is, can this man get game time? Because you have KL Rahul, who is definitely cemented at the top of the order opening the innings. Now, along with that, you might have Patum Nisanka or you might have Abhishek Porel. If you ask me honestly, I think it makes sense for Porel to be there because he's shown glimpses of massive improvement over the last couple of seasons, and he can also double up as your wicket keeper. So that's a team combination discussion that will need to be had. But if Prithvi Shaw does get a chance, he will want to grab it with both hands, not only for him, not only for his own sake, but also for the Delhi Capitals fans.
Absolutely, and it's interesting that it is Delhi Capitals who picked him up again because amongst all the franchises, if there's any that knows him really well, both his strengths
Hmm.
and weaknesses, that is Delhi Capitals. He was associated with Delhi Capitals in the past.
True.
Datta Atre says Prithvi Shaw will be back in form again, and that's an interrogative statement. There's a question mark at the end of it. Well, he did show glimpses of form for Maharashtra, but
Yeah,
somehow, even for Maharashtra, it's not been a consistent run. And probably in IPL,
exactly.
if you are able to win them, say, good 2 3 matches or 3 4
Hmm.
matches, then you've justified your worth. Moving on, South Africa sealed first away T20I series win against Shukri Conrad under rather Shukri Conrad. South Africa team secured their first away T20I series victory under Shukri Conrad, closing out the contest against New Zealand with a clinical performance. Defending 188, South Africa's bowling attack proved too strong, restricting New Zealand to 154 for 8. Early breakthroughs from Bjorn Mulder and Othniel Bartman set the tone before a disciplined spin effort led by Keshav Maharaj tightened control through the middle overs. The win was built on a standout knock from Connor Esther Husian, who smashed 75 of 33 balls after registering his maiden T20 I-50 in the previous game. Esther Husian capped off a memorable debut series by also claiming Player of the Series award. New Zealand captain James Neesham admitted his side fell short, particularly in the field, with dropped catches proving costly in a high scoring contest. For South Africa, Maharaj praised the young group for stepping up after trailing early in the series, highlighting the depth and hunger within the squad. The two teams will now meet again in a three-match ODI series.
Now, if you witness this T20I series, it was almost a bit of second string squads because the main players from each of these lineups are now gearing up for the IPL, right? Of course, there were a couple of players who have been picked but were still playing this series. Someone like Loki Ferguson, for example, was playing the series. And that had purely to do with the fact that I think he'd not had a really good run in the World Cup. And
Yeah.
so he wanted to get some game time. So, keeping those things in mind, I don't know how many people would have actually followed this series, and ultimately, Shukri Conrad is proving to be the kind of coach that South Africa has needed for the longest time. I think South Africa have always had the talent. They've always been that good side, but they needed someone at the top who could kind of get control of things, identify players for particular roles. And I feel like that's happened under Conrad. There's been an aggressive style of play, and there's been this almost not, I wouldn't say quiet confidence because he's pretty vocal in his press conferences, but he's gone on to sort of, paint the picture out for everyone in terms of South African cricket, the path it has forward. And we do know that they've done well in T20 tournaments multiple times recently in the World Cups as well. They're the recent ICC World Test Championship champions. And so I think all things considered, this wasn't a surprise, especially with the kind of New Zealand squad that was on display. There were quite a few youngsters. In fact, New Zealand, if I'm not wrong, had different squads in the first T20, and then for the next two, and then for the next two T20Is. So there was a lot of experimentation that was going on, more people getting chances, which is great for them because it means that they're expanding their own resource pool, their own talent pool. And all things considered, I think you sort of should have seen South Africa getting this victory. Having said that, it's still their first away victory, so it does become a bit of a moment to celebrate for them. But looking forward, I mean, moving forward, you don't expect them to go on to lose a lot of series, considering the kind of form they are in. And that's all I have for this piece of news.
Absolutely. And we've seen with South African team, whether under Rob Walter or Shukri Conrad, they've done fairly well at the big events in white
Mhm.
ball. But somehow, at least in the T20I version, they've struggled with bilaterals.
Yeah,
And like in the World Cup 2024 World Cup, they made it to the finals, but on either side, they lost series. So
that's true.
probably it is a big news, although it was one second string side versus the other second string side. Moving on and back to the IPL, KKR signed Navdeep Saini as replacement for injured Harshit Rana. Kolkata Knight Riders have signed Navdeep Saini as a replacement for the injured Harshit Rana for INR 75 lakh. Saini, who has represented India in two tests, three ODIs, rather eight ODIs, and 11 T20Is, has been out of the international setup since 2021. He has previously been part of Royal Challengers Bangalore and Rajasthan Royals in the IPL. In 32 matches, he has taken 23 wickets at an economy rate of 8.88, with his last appearance coming in 2023. If I have to give this opportunity another name, I will call it revival, Saini said. I've seen many ups and downs in the last 2 3 years. I kept working hard, and because of that, I got this opportunity. KKR had earlier signed Saurabh Dubey as a replacement for injured Akashdeep. Meanwhile, Gujarat Titans have brought in Kulwant Khijrolia as a replacement for Prithvi Raj, who's also ruled out due to injury. Khijrolia joins for INR 30 lakh and had previously featured for Gujarat Titans last season.
You know, at this point, there's so many injuries in the IPL that yesterday, with the folks over at Combox, we were discussing if we should have an injured players IPL 11 for the pre IPL injuries that have taken place. I think that's something that you guys should do as an exercise. It would be nice. But it's a very interesting story with Navdeep Saini, right? He was a part of that famous BGT victory. He was there with that squad.
Yeah.
Uh, it was a second string test squad, and then he got his chance. And that was around the time when he was still in recurring for the Indian team. Now, after that, just before the BGT that happened last time around, he was also playing a couple of the A games, and he was around the circuit. He'd come back into the domestic setup, had in fact done pretty decently. It got a few wickets as well. And you thought that, okay, maybe there is a chance for Navdeep Saini to be able to make a comeback. Also, because he was one of the few fast bowlers who could bat a decent bit. So you have all of those factors with him, all of that being considered. You would have hoped that maybe he can get a run with the India side for a while and then get into the Indian scheme of things. But that unfortunately hasn't happened for him, even after the fact that, even despite the fact that he was injured, he's come back, he's performed. It's just not seemed to work out for him. And so I think, rightly in his words, this is a second opportunity of sorts and maybe his second flight, because he would not have hoped, I mean, he would not have expected to come back into the IPL. And in fact, he didn't also, unless until this injury took place. So all things considered, I think KKR are short on enough fast bowlers. Patirana is not going to be around. Harshit Rana is not going to be around. Akash Deep is not going to be around. So you've lost out not just on pacers, but you've lost out on quality pacers. Harshit Rana has been one of the highest wicket takers over the last couple of seasons for this franchise. Patirana, we know what he can do in the death, especially. And even Akash Deep, someone who might not have played a lot of IPL cricket, but at the end of the day, he is an Indian Test fast bowler. And so there's a certain pedigree that you completely lose out on. And keeping that in mind, Navdeep Saini is a great replacement because he's also had that India experience. He has the experience of being around the circuit for so long. And so you would just expect that maybe this season he gets his chance and goes well.
Pratibh, you can make injured 11 ahead of the IPL, just don't make them play. All right, moving on. Pat Cummins targets return for second half of the IPL 2026. Pat Cummins is aiming to return for the latter stages of IPL 2026 as he continues recovering from a lumbar stress injury that ruled him out of the T20 World Cup. The Sunrisers Hyderabad captain has played just one competitive match since December and will miss the start of the season, with Ishan Kishan set to lead the side in his absence. Cummins has already arrived in India and has resumed light training in Bengaluru, including bowling sessions as part of his recovery plan. I'm back bowling every third day. We've mapped out a plan to get me right by the middle of the tournament. Cummins said, adding that his goal is to feature in the back half plus the finals. He also backed Kishan's leadership, pointing to his recent domestic success, and highlighted the importance of local players in helping overseas captains settle into team environments. Sunrise Hyderabad, who last won the IPL in 2016, began the campaign against Royal Challengers Bangalore.
Now, with Pat Cummins, I think till very recently, we didn't have much clarity on whether or not he's going to come back. Now, because of the fact that he's actually in India, he's working in Bengaluru, you know that there's at least the commitment that he wants to come back and play the IPL. He wants to play for SRH. And so, keeping that in mind, I think he is already doing everything possible for him to be able to make a comeback later on in the tournament. I like how he very cheekily says that he'll be back for the later half of the IPL plus the finals. That's something that we've seen Pat Cummins do over the years, where he likes to be a little cheeky with the press conference and with the sports journalists around. So, with SRH, it's going to be interesting, right? I don't think they have too many bowlers of great pedigree. They've also had some replacements coming around. Harshal Patel, I think, might have to do a bit of the heavy lifting. So it's going to be interesting for them. They also don't particularly have a marquee spinner now that I think about it. I think there is Shehbaz Ahmed, if I'm not wrong, and there's Harsh Dubey. So there is a little bit of problem there from a bowling point of view. We know their batters are all going to go hell for leather right from the get go, and it's the bowling that really ultimately will determine their games, because from a batting point of view, they are mostly going to outbat a lot of the oppositions that they come up against. And so I think they'll hope that Cummins is back, not only from the POV that he can also be a very handy middle overs bowler, but just from even the leadership point of view. Ishan Kishan has a proven track record with leadership with his deputy Abhishek Sharma as well. But is it going to be enough to rally everyone around, especially because they are fairly, I would want to say, junior in this regard as compared to Pat Cummins, who's basically won everything? So that's something that you will have to keep in mind. And hopefully for SRH fans and the Orange Army, he does come back in the middle of the season. He does help them get those victories, and he just turns things around if they don't start off well for the Sunrisers. That's it for this news.
And now it's meme time, and this is, I think, more like a Reddit thing, right?
Yeah.
Which says that Shane Warne, the mastermind, Shane Warne took a salary of just 9.35 CR from Rajasthan Royals for playing 4 seasons. But here's the real twist: he demanded a 0.75% equity in RR every year till the time he plays for coming out of retirement. Warne played for 4 seasons and secured 3% equity in Rajasthan Royals. Today, RR is sold for 15,301 crore, and his 3% becomes 460 crore for his children. I'm not sure about the maths over here overall, because what
Mhm.
we're saying is it is for the years that he played for RR. So
Right.
how does that work?
So I think my understanding of this, first of all, we'll have to check how legitimate this is. I do know that Shane Warne did have some kind of stake
Hmm.
in terms of equity within Rajasthan Royals, and for every season that he played, he got plus plus plus. So 0.75 for one season, for 2 seasons it would be 1.5. That's my understanding of the situation. But even if you just look at the fact that he decided that it would be better to take equity, it's something that you expect the king to do, right? You expect him to make these big play moves, and it's very entrepreneurial of him if you think about it, because of course you have players drawing a salary. In fact, there was this Twitter thread on the comparison of pays that various cricketers have got, right? Kohli, having played 18 odd seasons of the IPL, had made some 200, 300 crore, and Shane Warne, just from his equity, had already crossed that because of the kind of valuation that Rajasthan Royals had got when they recently got sold. So very interesting, something to keep in mind. And it just goes on to show sort of the visionary that Vaughn was even in this regard, because even in that 2008 season when Rajasthan Royals were starting off, nobody really gave them a chance. The odds were stacked against them. And with that squad, with a lot of domestic players, he was able to show that belief and just get a victory out of that squad, win the IPL. And so you knew that there was always something special about Vaughn. It's always something that people talk about. And it's also turned up in his business acumen, where he's decided that, okay, hey, I'll take a certain salary, but I know that Rajasthan Royals and the IPL are going to be huge. So why not leave some inheritance for my kids? Which is brilliant, I think, from Shane Warne. And yeah, that's mostly it. I think this is a great lesson in business, and for people starting out who might want to get equity in some startups instead of just having a salary, is something to keep in mind. But that's mostly it from us
Just
today at
one
Wake
more
Up Cricket.
point.
Go
Just
on.
one more point regarding
Yeah.
this news. Now, there are some fairly reliable portals that are
Hmm.
also mentioning it. Although, I think there are a lot of teams that would not have agreed to such terms, because
100%.
even though, exactly right, because even though the potential of IPL was not known at that
Hmm.
point. Like they weren't
Right.
sure that it would be this big. They knew it might grow.
Yeah.
And also the fact that, at least in Rajasthan Royals case, Shane Warne was the person around whose identity Rajasthan
That is true.
Royals identity was intertwined. So probably they
That is
agreed
true.
because of how big he was and how small
Exactly.
Rajasthan Royals were in comparison to
Hmm.
other big franchises like RCB, Mumbai
Yeah.
Indians, CSK for that
For
matter.
sure. For sure. Yeah, because I think he was. In fact, I think he might have been the only like really huge figure. Of course, Shane Watson, Graeme Smith, these guys were there, but Vaughn was the superstar figure in this side, right?
Captain,
And I think
coach, everything.
yeah, rightly so. Makes a lot of sense. Well, that's it from us. We've spoken about cricket, we've spoken about business. Sometimes we talk about geopolitics as well because that's where the world is at right now. But if you've liked this morning episode, definitely hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, get us to 500 subscribers or more. You can get us to 1,000 as well. That's it from us. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.